Tonight, Israeli forces have begun limited ground raids into Hamas-controlled territory in Gaza ahead of the expected ground invasion.
Itai Anghel is an Emmy-nominated war correspondent and documentarian filmmaker for Israel's Channel 12. Our Meredith Bruckner spoke to him earlier about what it's like to document war within the borders of his own country.
We do want to warn you, some of the images may be disturbing.
Itai, thank you for speaking with us today. You've been documenting wars and atrocities for more than 3 decades, but they've always been far from home. This has essentially happened in your backyard. What are people there feeling?
Thank you for having me. It's something that we never thought could happen. And let's talk about what is going to happen. I mean, things are only going to get worse. So many innocent people are about to die on both sides. It is terrible. It is just terrible. And the mood here is absolutely awful.
You recently visited Kibbutz Nir Oz to document what happened there, and you were effectively smuggled in because the army was not allowing anyone in at the time. What did you witness there?
When you see hell, it's like you visit a nightmare. I remember that what I felt, when I came back from Rwanda, the genocide, when I came back from Syria, Iraq, when I witnessed what ISIS did. And I felt it in Nir Oz. I mean, you see houses completely burned. You see bodies completely burned, mutilated. You smell, I can express myself pretty good, but I cannot express the smell. It's something that sticks and stays with you. This is horrible. You see the handle of the safe room in every house. It's twisted, it's a sign for the people who were inside who try to, to give a fight in order not to let the Hamas terrorists enter.
I can't imagine. How did you get through that experience?
In a strange way, I thank God that I have the camera with me, to hold it, to occupy myself with filming, to aim at something, because if I hadn't had anything, I would collapse, I would have a heart attack, I don't know. So it enables me just to work and to operate and not to think or reflect, because you're going to lose it if you start thinking about what you're just documenting.
What else struck you while you were there?
It's complete silence. Usually kibbutz is such a noisy place with so many kids and so many agriculture vehicles, operating, and music, and it is so much alive. And you hear nothing but the chimes. This is the soundtrack for the biggest massacre I ever documented in Israel and ever been documented in Israel.
The people you spoke to on the kibbutz, did you get a sense that they want to eventually return to their community one day?
I want to believe, that they will come back, because houses are gone. Okay, you can build houses. The question is whether you can rebuild a soul. I gotta tell you, the atrocities that we find out, and it is nothing that we can talk about in the media, not in our media, not in your media, is way beyond everything that was described. When you see photos and when you talk to the people who have been in the morgue, it is the worst things someone, I wouldn't say a human being, would be able to do.
It's a lot to take in. Itai, thank you for your time and for sharing your experience with us. We hope you and your loved ones continue to stay safe.
And joining us now for more insight on the impending Israeli invasion of Gaza is retired Army Colonel Jerry Font. As always, thank you for being here, Jerry.
Thank you again for having me.
So, impending ground invasion. It seems like for over 2 weeks now, since that initial attack by Hamas, we've been talking about this expected ground invasion beginning any day now. And here we are, 2 weeks later. What do you think is the holdup? What's happening right now?
This is going to be a conditions-based operation. This is not going to be time-based. So when the Israelis feel that they have set the conditions properly, that's when they will go in. Because, again, as we've talked about that, this is going to be a very ugly fight insofar as that three-block, three-dimensional fight. Military and military operations in urban terrain, as we use the acronym MOUT. Hateful, difficult things to do. And again, you know, I'm a veteran of the Battle of Tal Afar, so not an easy fight.
So it's likely to be a bloody conflict, bloodier than it's already been. It's not just Gaza that we're worried about. Can you show us really what they're considering, not only the Gaza Strip, but where they can even enter from? And they're worried about a widening conflict involving other nations and groups as well. Well,
you know, that's interesting, Shane, is that when you start looking at this, and I would say is before I talked about look at the rules of engagement that are being issued to the Israeli soldiers. Now start looking at what we are supplying to the Israelis. Now we've got the terminal high altitude air defense system that's going in that fills in the gap between the Iron Dome and also the Sling of David. So that really addresses the intermediate range, medium range, and short range ballistic missiles. And that's really taking a look at, if we could pan out a little bit. That's really taking a look more as you look at here in Israel, is that radar there, it had the missiles itself has about a 200-kilometer range, but the radar can look into western Iran. Wow. It's about 1,000 kilometers. That's what they say. With improvements, I'm sure that it can look a little bit deeper. Then also, we've recently had the Houthis fire rockets out of Yemen. It had to be out of western Yemen, not out of eastern Yemen, because it would transit over Riyadh. And of course, it had to be along the Red Sea here, because the Carney did in fact interdict those missiles. The SM-2 missile has a range of about 92 nautical miles, so a little over 100 statute miles. So in order to have the Carney in the Red Sea and be able to take out those missiles, they had to be fired from western Yemen towards Israel.
So we're talking about a conflict with a militant group. We're seeing an increase in incidents along that northern Israeli border with Lebanon as well. Why are we so focused on Iran? Talk about that role and the concerns about Iran.
Iran is the puppet master. They're the money. At least the IRGC, the Iranian Republican Guard Corps, helped plan this. Whether or not they gave the final approval to actually execute is another discussion. Again, that's up for the intelligence community to figure that out. But now you have Hezbollah, which has probably 100 times as many number of missiles as does Hamas up in Lebanon, as that's an issue. However, when you look at having two carrier strike groups in the area, what we're doing is we're sending a message. We're sending a message that this should not widen. And again, with the terminal high altitude anti-air defense systems, and also additional Patriot missile batteries going in, that's really sending a message to Iran to say, if you start to lob some missiles in towards this fray, then we're going to address those with our systems, and it's going to be an Iran-U.S. fight. That's what I'm seeing from a policy standpoint.
And that's the fear, right? If we see this conflict zone widen and start to expand, I mean, how quickly could that happen? How quickly could the U.S. be dragged into it?
Well, I would say this, is that these are all preventative, because you have to send a message. If you're strong, then it won't happen. If you're weak and you let it happen and then you try to move things in afterward, then that's problematic. But by putting them in there, we're sending the message. This is a geopolitical message that's being sent to Iran. And again, as before, Iran does not want a state-on-state fight with Israel, because Israel is very good at fighting armies. They have difficulty fighting terrorist groups, as they had problems in 2006 with Hezbollah in Lebanon. And again, the incursion last time they were in Gaza was 2014.
Now, with Israel having difficulty fighting militant groups, we've named several militant groups in this very discussion. Is that the crux of this challenge right now, just fronting all of these different threats?
You know, I know as an Army War College graduate, when we have a wicked problem that we need to look at, we turn it over to the military institutional educational side of it. I'm willing to bet that the Israelis, ever since 2014, when they saw that extensive tunnel system in Gaza, that they've been studying this ever since. And that's why they're going in and really they're setting the conditions by doing really reconnaissance in force and intelligence preparation of the battlefield to understand more and more there. If you look at it, they're being very successful at taking a lot of the Hamas leadership out.
Already.
All
so right.
If they can break down those cells, break down the communication, they can't coordinate. It makes it a lot easier. So anytime you have an insurgency, there's three things you need. You need safe haven, that's in Gaza. You need money, that's from Iran. You need leaders. If you can take out the leaders and stop the money, then you can deal with the rest of it.
Well, we will be following this every day, as we have been. Retired Colonel Jerry Fawn, thanks as always for joining us.
Thank you.